Inking up a stamp set for the first time should be a joyous occasion, but if you're not getting the best results, perhaps you need to do a little bit of cleaning first. Every technique video is narrated live while I'm doing the technique, so you're getting a real-time view of how the whole process works. Pull out the supplies I'm using and create right along with me, pausing as you need. Before we get started, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel. I appreciate it. Every stamp set you receive, though it looks clean and pristine when it comes out of the packaging, has a layer of manufacturing oil on it that needs to be removed prior to stamping. You're really going to notice this with solid images and solid images with words on them, especially because there's such a large surface area that the ink beads up really easily. So let's take a look at what that looks like. I have the heart here from this stamp set, and I'm going to just ink it up with a dye-based ink. And let me put it on some paper here for you. As you can see, I'm really inking it up, but as soon as I lift up the ink, it starts to separate. And if I'm going to go ahead and stamp this, that's going to be a terrible mess, and we're not going to be happy with the results at all. So there are a few ways that we can get our stamps clean and ready to go and get a beautiful crisp image the first time. The first thing I'm going to do is clean them off with a wet towel. You can use a scrubby like this one from Picket Fence Studios, and just scrub your stamp on here, and that's going to get that initial oil off of there. You can also just use a microfiber cloth and clean it off. Now I like to do this because I'm going to get quite a bit of the oils off, but I'm not going to get them all off. I can leave it right here on the carrier sheet and do that wiping. And you can hear that squeaky sound. That's because these are fresh, clean stamps. They need to get that oil off of them. So I'm just wiping them off. And even with my rubber stamps, I'm going to do the same thing. Rub off some of that oil with a microfiber cloth. All right, so that's my first step. Then for my second step, I'm going to use an eraser. Now here's where you want to be careful. The eraser that you use should be a soft eraser. So like these white erasers, these work fantastically. You can also get ones, some companies sell them as stamp conditioning erasers. They're really all the same. They're just soft erasers that are going to do a little bit of pilling up instead of making all sorts of tiny lint. But all I'm going to do is take my eraser and scrub it on here. Now, do you see all of that milkiness that is attaching itself? That's all that oil that really needs to come off. So I'm going to erase this. And you can see at some point, it is actually starting to come off. You don't need to work as hard on some images, especially if they're not a solid image. If it's a more linear image like this one here, you just need to do a quick erase, like so. So I'm just going to go all the way across this guy here. And as you can see, the first time you're going to get some little lint, and then you're going to want to wipe that down with your towel again to get all that lint off, because we obviously don't want to stamp with that in the way. So let me finish this guy here. All right, so I'm just going to wipe these off now with my towel to get all that lint off of there. All right, same thing with this guy. Just get all that lint off. All right, so we know that we want to use a soft rubber eraser. You can even use a pink eraser as long as it doesn't have any abrasives in it. So I pulled out a few things that you definitely don't want to use. Sandpaper. This is a huge no-no. Don't ever sand your stamps, your photopolymers, your red rubber stamps. This was something that people talked about a long time ago, and it really was not a good practice. This will sand down the rubber or the photopolymer and leave you with an uneven image and could even leave gouges and all sorts of things. Don't use sandpaper. Also, don't use a sand eraser. So what's in here? There's a microscopic little sand and it's rough. It's going to damage your stamps as well. Do not use a sand eraser. Another thing you should not use is your adhesive eraser. Look at this. It's got all sorts of gummy stuff on it. Though it might work, it's going to leave this gummy deposit behind on your stamp, and you don't want to have any extra gunk on there. That's what we're trying to get off. So don't use your adhesive eraser either. Use a nice soft white or pink eraser to work on your stamps. You can even use a click eraser. This works just fine. So you don't need anything special. You might have one around the house already that you can put into your craft space and use to condition your stamps. All right, so now that we have these conditioned, let's take a look at our after. I've got this all nice and wiped off. Now you can see that it's not as clear as it was when we started. When we started, this photopolymer stamp was as clear as could be. You could see right through it. It was a gorgeous, pristine stamp, but it was not ready for stamping. Now it has a little bit of a haze to it. And even when I go to stamp this in the future, I might take a small eraser and just do some gentle erasing on it to get rid of any other oils that may have gotten on here from stamping last and cleaning it. From my hands, I want to make it nice and milky in color. You see how that is? Nothing is sticking to it on this side. It's nice and milky. It's going to be ready to accept a dye ink, no problem. Actually, any ink. But you will notice this especially with dye inks. We don't want to have that happening. So now that I've got it conditioned, let's see what happens. Again, I'm going to ink this up. And look, this time the ink is not separating. I can go ahead and stamp this. And I get a result that is 1,000,000 times better. If you notice that you still have a little bit of variation, one thing you might want to do is wait for it to dry. Another thing is, of course, to use a stamp positioner just to make sure that you're getting even coverage all the way across. And that you can stamp it again if you need to. So there we go. Conditioning your stamps with a soft white eraser will give you a better result every time. I hope you enjoyed this technique and you add it into your toolbox sometime soon. When you give it a try, share it out on Instagram and tag me at NicoleWattCreates. I always love to see what your creative mind is thinking. Thank you so much for spending a little time with me today. And until next time, happy crafting.